Hey guys, it's Marina with Artworthy Life, where I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. And welcome to another of our October Doodle a Day Challenge demos. I'm super excited for today because it's another turquoise day, and I love our turquoise days. Any of our blue-green colors that we're using are so fun, and I've been enjoying them a lot, obviously, because it's one of my favorite colors. But I want to give you guys a big announcement. If you were not on yesterday, you might have missed this. Now, first of all, for anybody that might have been trying to jump onto Instagram, I'm not live on Instagram today. We have a little bit of technical issues with Instagram, but I am live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can catch me there and hopefully get a good clear picture to follow along today. Tried to use the best camera today and get the best lighting, so I think I'm there. Hi, Preston. Thanks for watching today. So, big announcement is that we are going to be continuing. First of all, how many of you guys have really liked this Doodle a Day challenge? If you did, leave a pumpkin in the comments if you really enjoyed the Doodle a Day challenge for October. I can't wait to see those pumpkins come through. So if you enjoyed that, leave those pumpkins. And if you did, this is for you. We are going to be continuing the Doodle a Day challenge into the month of November. And I'm so excited for it because what we're going to be using as our Doodle a Day challenge is actually going to be our DIY Advent calendar. So behind me, you can see just a little bit of the edge of my Advent calendar that I created last year. And we did go through that Advent calendar together. But this year, it's new and improved and polished up and ready for you guys all over again. Hi, Valerie. Good morning. Good to see you on. So we're going to be continuing the Doodle a Day challenge using the DIY Advent Calendar doodles. And here's the kicker. My tracers are available in a beautiful PDF printable ebook that you can download for $10 off of Etsy. However, if you would like to follow along with all of the demos and get the tracers for free as well as the ebook, you can join the Artworthy Journal Club for just $17, and you get access to all of those challenges as well as all of our events that are normally in the Artworthy Journal Club. That's at least 4, but 5 this month. 5 events in the month of November, every Monday, Wednesday challenges, lots of prompts to keep you going in your art journaling. But most of all, you get the community of other art journalers who are excited to have you sharing and posting together. You get to see all their artwork as you create together. So here's the key. The Doodle a Day challenge will not be public. This DIY Advent Calendar challenge will not be public. It will only be inside the Artworthy Journal Club. Now you can go back and look at the archived videos from last year and try to find each of the ones from that year. If you want to, you're more than welcome to. But if you want it to come to you nicely packaged and ready to go and get access to my ebook for free, then just join the Artworthy Journal Club. It's way easier. And it'll all be packaged in there. Oh, Valerie says, good to see you. Yay, I'm so glad. Thank you for being on. That's really fun. Hi, Leslie Ann. She gave me 4 pumpkins. I'm so excited. She's excited for the October Doodle a Day challenge. I'm excited as well. Thank you, Preston, for the pumpkin as well. Hi, Jeannie. Welcome. I'm so glad you're watching today. Hello. So without further ado, we're going to get into today's doodle, but I just wanted to let you guys know that that is coming up. And so I'm going to post a comment right now, a link to the Artworthy Journal Club. So if you'd like to join the Artworthy Journal Club, the link is posted right now. It should be popping up on YouTube and on Facebook. And you can click there and it'll be directed to PayPal and you'll be able to subscribe right away. And that will tell me that you're ready to join the club and that you've joined, and then you'll be getting some emails from me soon to let you in on November 1st, which is when we start our Doodle a Day challenge for the Advent calendar. And I'm so excited. I've already been working on the first doodle. Here's our first doodle. If you guys can see this. It's called Word of God. This is our day 1 doodle. And I absolutely love it. This is the first one. And the second one, I'm working on the tracer right now. Here's the deer that we'll be doing on day 2 of the DIY Advent Calendar Doodle a Day Challenge. And here's the finished painting. So you really don't want to miss out on these. They're going to be so fun. I'm so thrilled that we get to go through this again together. So click on that link, join the Art Really Journal Club. That's all I'm going to say about that today. And we're going to get started on today's doodle. So before we do, let me read some scripture. That's the best place to start our day, right? Let's read some more on the Sermon on the Mount. Now, we left off with some bad news, which was verse 23 of Matthew chapter 7, which said, Jesus says, I never knew you, depart from me. And we don't want that news. We want to know how we don't get that bad news. So I told you the good news was coming. So I'm going to read the rest of the Sermon on the Mount, and it's just one parable that Jesus tells at the end of chapter 7 to wrap up his beautiful, beautiful Sermon on the Mount. And this is one of the things that causes people to be in awe. And you'll hear that at the very end of this. But I'm going to go ahead and finish up the Sermon on the Mount today, because tomorrow and Friday I will not be live. There will be doodle demos posted, recorded for you guys, but I will not be live on either of those days. And then there will be no demo on Saturday. I know that's one of the last days of the month, but we're just going to skip Saturday, and I'm going to let you guys have your weekend. But we're going to have Thursday and Friday recorded and posted. But I wanted to be able to read this with you guys live as I bump the camera and it rattles. Okay, so here's the good news from Matthew chapter 7, verse 24, and on to the rest of the chapter. Here's what it says. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine, Jesus, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. And it came to pass, when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. I just got chills all the way up my shoulders. I love that. You guys, we've heard that. I mean, if you have not heard that, tell me how amazing that is, that story. But if you are a Christian, you've been exposed to Christianity in any way, you've heard that story before, but how profound is that? Oh, a house falls if it doesn't have a good foundation. It needs to be founded on a rock. So anyway, I just think that's amazing. That's the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Thank you guys for being with me this whole time. We're on day 26, guys. We're on day 26 of a doodle a day. And if you've been with me the whole time, you've heard the whole Sermon on the Mount. So give yourself a pat on the back for dedicating some time to the Word of God, using art to get your creative juices flowing, and also to take time to honor the God who is the ultimate creator in this universe. I just love his word. I love his word. So we really, really have enjoyed that. I'll read some scripture in our recordings tomorrow, but I wanted to finish the Sermon on the Mount with you guys live. So I'm really glad that you're here today. Good morning, Teresa. Welcome. Thanks for watching from Vanita. I know where you are. Hi, Bonnie. How are you this morning? Good to see you. And that reminds me, if you haven't already said, tell me where you're watching from so I can say hi. And if you haven't said hello, say hello. All right, we're going to get into this doodle for today. This is a sweet little doodle. As you can tell, we are on our turquoise theme, as I said earlier. So I'm going to start with the same teal kind of turquoise color that we were using previously, and that is actually a combination of two colors. So I'm using the Komorebi watercolor palette by Mozart. If you are not familiar with that one, you can find it on Amazon. And let me see, I'm not seeing comments come through, so I'm going to refresh my page and make sure I can actually see you guys commenting and make sure I haven't missed anybody. Okay, let's see. So the color we're going to use to mix this up is azurite blue, which actually has a little green in it already. And then we're going to add some peak green to that. That's a brighter kind of true green. So in other words, just get a blue and a green mixed together until you get a nice teal turquoisey color that isn't too blue. We want it to have some good green in it. Okay, let's see. Who is commenting that I missed? Oh, Jackie. Hello, Jackie. Welcome. I'm so glad you're on. Thank you for being here today. That's super fun. Let's see. Can I see? Yeah, for some reason, comments aren't showing on the other page. Okay, so we're just going to use this nice teal blue. And let me show you what that color looks like. Here's a scrap piece of paper. Here's the blue I've mixed up. It's just kind of a light teal color. And we're going to go ahead and start by painting in just the wagon part. And that is going to be a very light shade. I'm using my size 3 round, and we will leave some shine behind. So leave some little white spaces. And if you don't know where to put shine, I always just say, act like you're bad at coloring in and skip some sections. Even if it's not in exactly the right place, it'll help. So I'm just going to put some on the left there, and then I'm going to start adding a little shading with black. So I'm going to switch to my number 2 liner brush and add some black to my teal. And that is going to darken it up a little bit, and I can just drop that into the corners of this wagon back here by the front. And over here. And I can just let that color kind of bleed into itself. And if my painting isn't wet anymore, I can kind of help it along by wetting my brush again. Like that. And I'm really not going to get too detailed with this part of the painting because there's a lot going on in this painting, and we can add more in a minute. So let me see if I see any comments. Teresa says, good morning. Hello. Jeannie says, sweet. Yay. Bonnie says, good morning as well. How fun. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anybody's comments. Okay. So as we add this in, you want to try to do your shading while it's still wet. Like I said, that'll save you some time later because the watercolors will do some of the blending for you. You just drop them in while it's wet. Right here is a little bit dry, so I'm kind of adding water to wet it again. But then once it's wet, it will just flow around the corners, and it will only flow to areas that already have water. That's the great thing about watercolor. So you can just kind of put some water down or some wet area, and the watercolor will just flow to only that wet area and kind of stay away from the areas that are more dry. So that's kind of neat. So I'm just adding a little bit more teal to the edge of this little wagon. And I did actually find pictures of antique wagons that are teal like this, which I thought was really cool because most of the time you only see them red. And so I wasn't sure if I would be able to find a legitimate like teal wagon. And what's funny is when I was in school, I actually painted or drew like a green wagon. So I don't know if I just never liked the red or what was the deal. But apparently I've drawn them before. I found a drawing where I had done another wagon that was not traditional red. Okay, so feel free to get creative with your colors. I'm going to start on the pumpkins because they're a lighter color and the blues are going to be really rich and pigmented, and I don't want that color to be kind of competing with the other color while we're trying to wait for things to dry. So in other words, we're kind of going light to dark here. So I'm going to start with an orange that matches the orange on the pumpkins we did before on this little truck. And that is a mixture of our straight orange, which is number 10 in this palette, with a little bit of brown added to it. So it just kind of mutes the orange and turns it into more of a pumpkin orange. And so that's going to be our pumpkins here. And these pumpkins are going to be a lot more abstract, I'm going to say, than some of the pumpkins we've done before, like this one down here. So basically, I'm just going to add a little bit of orange and leave some white space around the edges. And then do this next little bump on this pumpkin. And I'm going to water this down and kind of push some of that color out toward the edge. And then also do the back here. Now I can just come in with some brown, and I'm going to add a little bit of shading on the left. Do a little bit of shading here. And I'm going to be almost as quick as I was on those tiny little pumpkins, just because this doesn't need to be detailed for us to create a really cute little shape. It can be pretty simple and still be really pretty. I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow to my orange to brighten it up a bit. I want that orange to still be kind of a happy color. So I'm just brightening up a little bit of the orange in my palette. And then down here at the bottom, I can put a little bit more shading. So I'm going to wet that and then drop in some brown down at the bottom. And that dark brown is going to give me some shading where you can see the pumpkin sitting in the wagon. And it doesn't take a whole lot, just a little bit in those corners, like that. We'll kind of pull it up toward the edges. And then I can do a little bit in the front here and let it kind of fade out into the rest of the pumpkin like that. We can use a smaller liner brush as well to add that brown to the back of the pumpkin here, kind of behind the stem, because those back pumpkin dimples, whatever you want to call them, the bumps on the pumpkin, are not going to show up very well if they're not a slightly different color from the ones in the front. So now I'm going to kind of paint those in darker brown, like that. And there's our little pumpkin. So that one is ready to go, and we are going to paint the second pumpkin a similar color, maybe just a little bit more rust colored. So I'm going to add a little bit of red to the orange that I just used and use that as my base coat. So it's going to be kind of pink, actually, by the time I get it on there. So just like a lighter rust color. And I'll leave a little bit of space between the pumpkins and a little bit of white space on the pumpkin itself. And this one I didn't bother to do the bumps in the back because it's so small I didn't think it needed it. And now we can add a little bit of brown in the creases of this pumpkin, kind of on the edges and down at the bottom as well. So again, this doesn't take a whole lot. Pumpkins are just such a simple shape that your eye knows what it's looking at, even if you're not putting a lot of detail on it. And that's the fun thing about some watercolor doodles, is you can just add the slightest little bit of a shape, and your eye and your brain, your wonderful brain that God created, knows what you've made, and it can fill in those blanks for you. Okay, so I'm just pulling up some darker orange up the side of the pumpkin right now, and then kind of adding a little bit into the edges as well. And that's going to just make that pumpkin a little bit more red. We want to round off the top edges of these little bumps so it doesn't look too messy. I don't actually want it to look messy. I just want it to look simple. Good morning, Terry. So good to see you. How are you this morning? Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of orange to this pumpkin while it's slightly wet because I want to give it a little bit more shading, but not too much. Like that. Okay, and I think that's about where I want to stop. So I'm just going to pull that darkest of the rust color. And I know there's probably not a pumpkin this color. I don't know. You guys could look this up. There there are so many colors of pumpkins. Surely there's like a reddish pumpkin. I don't know. But the point is, I'm not too worried about it because it's a painting, you know? Okay, and it will tie in the reds from the rest of our doodles, which is what I'm going for. All right, now I'm going to grab my teal, and be careful of your red if you are still waiting for your red to dry, but I'm going to add my teal to the center of this wagon, like that, and over here as well. And if you need to turn your painting, you can to get it a little bit more, get your brush strokes a little bit more smooth if you're having trouble with the angle. Remember to clean your brush in between brush strokes. I just had a little bit of red on that. I'm like, why is this a weird color? That brush still had some red on it. All right, I'm going to add in some darker teal here now while this is still wet to darken up the center of the wagon like that. And like I said, this is not going to take a lot. That can just dry like it is, and that looks great. So now I'm going to add some darker teal to the detail on the bottom of this wagon. There's this little post right here, and actually on the tracer, this post is black. Of course, I don't want to paint that in black because that would be really harsh. But I do want a dark color, and that's going to be teal with some black added to it, and that'll be dark enough for our eyes to distinguish the difference between the bottom of the wagon and these little metal pieces that are holding the wheels on. Is that like an axle? Probably. Okay, it's like a teeny tiny axle. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of this darker teal as well to this little metal bar. And I could do this in a silver color, you know, just imitate like a silver with some gray and black. But just kind of leave it up to you what you want to do. Now, this post is out enough in the light that I'm going to leave some shine on it. So I did that, if you can see that there. And I need to mix up a little bit more of my teal because I'm running out already. It's amazing how much teal it takes sometimes. And then I'm just going to use that teal to darken up this post a little bit more so that the blue really shows. Like that. Okay, so as those fill in, it'll dry a little bit darker too, or a little bit more faded, I guess is the word. Okay, the edge of the wagon needs to be painted in a little bit more, and I'm just going to be careful as I paint that in to leave some white space. I definitely want shine on the edge, because if I don't have any shine on the edge, you won't be able to see the edge at all, especially on a painting this small. So I'm going to leave that pretty shiny. And then come back in. I'm going to use my smallest liner brush for all this little detail stuff. This is my number 10 aught is what Leslie Ann figured out that should be called. And this will be what we use to border the back here. And then up underneath this pumpkin here. Like so. I'm going to kind of go up underneath that as well. And now there's one big shine across the side, and it doesn't really need that much shine. So I'm going to kind of paint in some of that so it's not all white along the edge. And then bring some more teal. Now that my teal is pretty dark up on the top, I'm going to bring some more down into the bottom as well. Okay, and I can drop some darker teal into the edges of that wet area to make sure the bottom of my wagon is nice and dark. That's kind of a cool way to let the shading happen. It actually also looks kind of rustic, which matches that kind of vintage feel. I'm also going to use my liner brush to line the pipe things we painted in underneath so that they are more crisp. So I'm just taking some dark teal and using that kind of as a border. And also right here. And then lining this one as well. If you don't have a teeny tiny brush, you could technically use a micron pen to do some of this outlining. It won't be the same effect, but it will give that crisp edge. And a lot of people really like the watercolor and pen look anyway. So you could give that a shot if you want to. Okay, and now we're going to do the colors of the wheels. Hi, Grandma. So glad you're here. I could do these on the boat. Oh, yeah, you totally could because it's small enough for you to be able to store them or whatever you need to. Yeah, for sure. That's one great thing about watercolor. I love watercolor in the first place because unlike acrylic, you don't need a canvas. And canvas, you have to store it. If you don't love your painting, you have to figure out what to do with it or paint over it. And it makes these really big projects that are sometimes hard to figure out what to do with. But let's see what Jeannie said. That tracer was not for the tiny pumpkin. I'm not sure what you meant, Jeannie. Can you leave another comment and clarify? The tracer was not for the tiny pumpkin. I'm not sure what you meant. Okay. And then, and then if you go even smaller on the watercolors, you can store a whole stack of them, like, 26 days of projects in a little teeny tiny spot. Jeannie says, I thought that was what you were doing, cute little wagon. Oh, you mean this pumpkin? Yes. No, I'm painting this one up here. This pumpkin is here for color reference. It's sitting nearby so we can look at it. Yep. Oh, good, Jeannie. I'm so glad you're loving watercolor. That's great. Yeah, so the great thing about these doodles, Jeannie, is, and I'm not sure how many you've been able to catch. You've caught a couple before already, right? Seems like I saw you on. But the great thing about these ones is that they all coordinate in color. So I oftentimes will pull out the others and have them sitting nearby while we're painting so that we can see the color, compare the color, and mix it close to the right tone and everything. So this wheel has a little bit of rust on it. So I'm actually going to take, guess what color? Rust. We've been using rust a lot this month. I just took some rust color and watered it down. Now, if you don't remember how to mix up rust, it's your crimson red with orange and brown. And that's how I make my rust color. And I'm just going to kind of use that to fill in the quote-unquote white area of the wheel that has a little bit of rust on it because it's old and it's cute. So I'm just touching it a little bit with this paintbrush, but I'm leaving it mostly white, obviously, because it's a white wheel. And then doing the same thing on the wheels in the back as well, just giving it a little tiny bit of red. And now I'm going to grab my dark rust and add some black to it. And this is the color we're going to use for the tires, actually. So it's going to be almost black, but like I said, I almost never use straight black. And that just makes things look more realistic. Jeannie is asking, is your group going to be a watercolor? Is my group going to be a watercolor? The Artworthy Journal Club uses watercolors a lot, if that answers your question. We use watercolors on almost all of our art journaling. It's just one of my favorite mediums, and it's really easy to use for every day. So if that's what you're asking about, yes, our art journaling, sometimes we use other mediums like chalk pastel or acrylic or Mod Podge or colored pencils or whatever. But for the most part, I love watercolor, and I like to encourage people to use watercolor on a daily basis because they get better and better at it as they practice with it. So yes, we use watercolor a lot. And then we have an exclusive watercolor paint party every month. So there's a full paint party every month using watercolors. And sometimes I throw in a few other mediums as well, but that paint party is specifically for improving our watercolor skills, practicing on a big piece of paper instead of on a little page. So it's kind of fun. On these little wheels, I'm kind of going around the center first with the darkest color and kind of letting it fade out into the outer part of the wheel with some water. Just because that seems to look nice. So I'm going to add a little bit of black to my crimson again. Jeannie, did that answer your question? I hope that answered your question. And when I'm adding this darker pigment, I'm using thicker paint, so I'm not adding as much water to it. I'm just kind of running along the outside and then cleaning my brush using a clean wet brush and sweeping that around this wheel. Just kind of letting the watercolors go around the outside of the wheel. Like that. And I can drop in a little bit more black. Okay, good, Jeannie. That's great. And if you are interested in joining, there's a link that I just posted in the comments. So you can scroll back in the comments and see that link. And if you go to that link, you can read all about the Journal Club without joining. That link will just take you to the information page where you can either join or just read about it. And so if you have any further questions, that would probably answer more of your questions. Jeannie says, been following you a long time and was hoping it would be mostly watercolor. Yeah, it's almost entirely watercolor, I would say. I like to throw in other things because we like to try stuff. So we've done some acrylic, we've done some almost like paper mache with Mod Podge, and we've done some other chalk pastels and things. I mean, I kind of try to incorporate some things here and there, but mostly I've just found that the look of watercolor is my favorite, so I gravitate toward it. So a lot of my projects kind of hover around watercolor. So I hope you'll join us if you want to. You could at least join for the month of November. Try out the DIY Advent Calendar Doodle a Day Challenge. And if you like it, you could stay. It would be fun. And I've seen you so often on this that it would be really cool to actually have you kind of almost in person on Zoom. All of our events are on Zoom now, by the way, for those of you that don't know. The Art with Journal Club used to have just 1 or 2 Zoom events a month. And now all of our Monday events are on Zoom, which is really cool because I actually get to see all of you ladies on a weekly basis instead of just twice a month. And all of the events are optional. Like if you're not able to make it, that's totally fine. They're recorded and posted in the group so you can get access to them. So I always say, don't be overwhelmed. There's a lot happening. It's like a giant library of resources. And if you look at all the resources all at once, it could seem like a lot. But basically, it's sort of like a buffet. If you like something, take it. If you don't like it, leave it and just enjoy what you really like and don't get overwhelmed because there's a lot going on in the group. And especially just enjoy the ladies who are posting. That's my favorite thing. Aw, Valerie says, join Jeannie, you will love it. Thanks, Valerie. Jeannie, these are 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, each one of these little doodles. And if you download the Doodle tracer, the tracer is sized to the correct measurement. So you can also measure it off of that if you'd like to. Did you get the tracer this morning, Jeannie? It has 3 tracers on it because I'm going to be live today, but I won't be live tomorrow or the next day. But I still wanted you guys to have demos. So the demos are going to be there, but they will be recorded. And so I just gave you guys the tracers all at once. So there's 3 tracers today, and you can use those when you see the demos post tomorrow. So those will be really fun. I can't wait to see you guys. I'm going to be traveling to California for some business training, but I will still kind of be every once in a while checking on my Facebook to see what you guys are posting. So I hope you guys will join, watch those recorded demos and post because I'm going to be watching for it. Bonnie says, you will love it, Jeannie. Come join us. Oh, Bonnie, you're so sweet. And Bonnie, you are on top of it with these doodles. So many of the Artworthy Journal Club ladies are the ones that are posting the most of these doodles. It's so fun to see each of them take and, put their own spin on the doodles. And Bonnie is on Instagram. So I see hers post like almost instantly right as soon as I'm done. And it's really fun to watch. I just think it's so cool. Let's see. I was going to say, who else on here downloaded the tracer? Because, Jeannie says she did download it. Perfect. So who else on here did download the tracer? And has anybody tried to actually print directly onto watercolor paper? Because if your printer is capable, you can print those straight onto watercolor paper. It's kind of cool. Okay, I'm going to use the same rust color. This is kind of like that dark rust color with black added to it for the stems of the pumpkin. So I'm just going to come over here and do a stem on this pumpkin like so, and leave a tiny little bit of white space. Same thing on this stem. Leave a little white space on the right-hand side, like that. And then, last but not least, I'm going to fill in the handle of this wagon. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and do the handle black as well. My reference photo shows a kind of a gray rusted out handle. So I'm just going to do this one, that rust color darkened with black. And if you're noticing that your colors are not spreading onto the page as nicely as you'd like, you may have a little too much water. So some of my colors were they weren't as smooth going on. And that's what that is. So all I have to do is just get a little bit more pigment straight out of the palette, mix it into my little puddle of paint that I'm working on over here. And as long as I don't add more water to it, it will get more saturated and the texture will become more sticky. I don't know what the word is for that. There's a word for that. Less watery. And that's what you want, a little less watery. The less watery it is, the more control you have for the most part. So if you're having trouble with that, that's how you can fix that problem. Just add a little bit more pigment to your palette. I'm just going to get a little bit more of this color on my brush and come up here into the handle. Valerie says she did, but she did not try watercolor paper. Okay, so you did print your tracers though. You printed them, but you didn't print them on watercolor paper. Yeah, and so if your printer will take it, it'll go zip and it'll suck it right in. It should print onto watercolor paper, but it just depends on how thick of a paper your printer can handle. Obviously, if you have like an industrial size printer, it will do a lot neater of a job, quicker of a job of just grabbing that and printing it out, no problem. Jeannie says, I'll try it, 8.5 by 11. Yes, the printable is 8.5 by 11, just like a normal letter size page. Yep, PDF printable. So hopefully you're able to open that. You can either print it straight offline or download it and then print it. I think it works both ways. So yeah, let me know how well it prints. I'd love to see. Unfortunately, the other tracers are already gone, but you'll be able to use all the tracers from this week. And if you do join the club, you'll get all the tracers for the Advent calendar as soon as you're inside the journal club. Okay, I'm adding a little bit of black around the edges here and there because I want to darken up these wheels to match the darkness that I added to this handle over here. So I'm just giving it some black all around to deepen those shadows even more. And I especially want to do that to the ones that are kind of back behind the wagon. So where the wheel is hiding behind the wagon here, I'm going to blend in some of that black so that it actually darkens up the center of the wheel too. I think that's going to work out better. Yeah, that works out a little better. I like that. And I'm going to just darken that up even more. See, that makes more sense. It's not so bright back there. Just touching that with a little bit of black, and look how much difference that makes. I'm using my tiniest liner brush because I want to be sparing with this color. You could use a bigger brush, but this allows me to put a tiny bit and spread it around before I commit to too much. And you can see I've left little bits of white space here and there around that. Lastly, I'm just going to take a little bit more of the orange, mix it with some brown, get a nice deep orange color, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of detail to these pumpkins because I don't want them to disappear because they are so faint against all those dark shadows we just created. I'm just going to add that kind of just to the outsides mostly. Maybe do a little bit of lines up the pumpkin like that. And then I'll do the same thing on this one using the same color. Just give it a little bit more happening. It's amazing how many layers you can add. And it's just like, oh, look, let me add another layer. But you don't want to overdo it. But you really can just keep kind of adding layers. Whoops. That was a puddle that dropped down off of my brush. So I'm going to take a thirsty brush and soak it up like a straw. And there it went. No problem. We'll just let that dry and it won't be an issue. Jackie says, I take a picture of the item, then trace it on my 2.5 square. I use watercolor paper. So Jackie, do you trace it on your screen? Like use your screen as a light box? Because I have done that quite a bit. I do that all the time, actually, especially with photos of people, things like that, or of things that have a specific shape that I'm just not wanting to take the time to freehand. Jeannie says she'll probably do that too. Oh yeah, good idea. Thank you, Grandma. Actually, I have some Christmas cards set aside for you already that I need to show you. So remind me, I need to get on FaceTime with you and show you the ones I have and see if those will work for what you're looking for. Thank you so much for wanting to get Christmas cards. That's exciting. Grandma has been watching a lot of my demos, and she asked that I create some Christmas cards for her. So I went and I looked and saw which ones I have already. And then I have some more that will be coming up. So we'll see which ones will work for you. Oh, Jackie does use it as a light box. How cool. So yeah, that works really, really well. That'll work most of the time as long as you're in a dark room and you can brighten up the screen really well. So awesome. I'm glad that works for you. Alrighty, well, this is our demo for today, and that is all I have for you, ladies and Guy, whoever might be watching. Thank you so much for joining us, and join us tomorrow. Even though I won't be live, there will be demos posted, and paint a doodle for October. Finish strong and post something on your page, tag Artworthy Life so I can see it. and I will comment because I love to see all of your demos. Alrighty, thank you for joining me. You're welcome, Valerie. God bless you guys. Have a super, super happy Wednesday, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.